Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Many of you report to me that you've been in this church and in this building for decades. Who's been here for decades? Yes. Okay. You've seen this congregation wax and wane. You've experienced building projects and building crises. You know God from these walls, this plaster, this altar, the lights, the liturgical objects, the liturgies that have happened here, and the fellowship hall. This complex of buildings and her grounds are a lasting part of your spiritual geography. That is where your life with and in God is played out, one of the ways that is played out. I too have a church building as part of my spiritual geography. Let me tell you about it. My place since I was in kindergarten is St. John's Church in Hampton, Virginia. It is the successor congregation to that founded at Jamestown in 1607. It tells you a little bit right there about the ethos of the place. Now, growing up in my conflation of God, the U.S. military, the United States history, and the Episcopal Church, I believe that Pocahontas was baptized in this church because the window over here, the baptism of Pocahontas, had a font in it that looked like the font that was right there next to the brass eagle. She wasn't, by the way, baptized in the United States. She was baptized in England.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well.
Yeah. My love of music was nurtured there. An organ, kind of like that, was this mysterious kind of Wizard of Ozzy thing. It had lights that flickered in it, and it had a mysterious curtain that the man pulled so you wouldn't see his feet. And so it was like, what's going on there? And it made all these wonderful sounds, including bells and, yes, a whistle.
Oh, yes.
And I sang in the boy choir, the junior choir. They had a youth choir and a senior choir, too. My brother threw up on me, sitting next to me one morning. It was the hymn, God is Working His Purpose Out. And you know that as the waters cover the sea, and poor little kid. So I helped him walk out looking as if nothing had happened, holding my sick brother. I remember how the processional party would all gather together on the stairs, sort of in the sacristy in the choir room, which was attached to this colonial church building. And we'd have quiet for like a minute before the service started. The crucifers, the torches, the flag bearers, the squirmy kids choir, that everybody stood on the staircase and had a silent minute before worship. And I remember to this day how the altar is set, because it's set the same way as when I was a kid. It hasn't changed. Neither have the instructions for the ushers, by the way. I was an usher in high school. I go back and know exactly what they're doing, because I did it. The altar had gleaming brass and silver. There were marble 10 Commandments, you know, as churches in Virginia had, marble tablets of the 10 Commandments in gold leaf behind the altar. And there were spotlights bright on the altar, so even in the 1960s, it was all bright and shiny and special. And you walk in there today and you can smell old prayer books. You know what the smell of a book is in the humid South? It's not disgusting, it's just, it's there. And you know what needlework smells like in the South after a couple of decades? It just smells like it's been there for a while. And I too remember the graveyard surrounding the church that was built in 1640. As a kid, it scared me a lot to walk through that thing. Now I see it as peace, primarily because all the families that lived on my block growing up, all their gravestones are there, as are the stones of my parents and where I'm going to go. So there's a sense of my whole life is around this church. I remember the funeral liturgies, my sister's marriage ceremony, my own ordination to the diaconate. I remember my service there as a seminary intern where So I was like in kindergarten in this place, and now I'm a preacher in this place. It's like, whoa, hard to do that. And deep within me then is the idea that this experience of mine as a child is church. It was a deep, early experience of church. So, I end up in Wichita for a year being an interim pastor there. Guess what? People that have been there for decades have their spiritual geography there. And stuff that I go, They go, oh, this is so important. The light shining through here meant this, and I was a child here, and I go, oh, I get it. So I get it for them. I get it for you. I get it for me. The problem is that we can translate your experience and mine in this time and place. Our spiritual geographies can mislead us. They can be false friends. We can get the untrue assumption that the chair we sit in, the pew that is ours, the architecture, the lighting, the gardens, the smells, the linens, that is the church. All that is the church. This view is summed up in the common expression which I use too. I'm going to church. Have you been to church? But it's a false friend, because the building and the contents and the plot of ground are not the church. It is actually the people who come into the building and use the contents and stride the grounds. We are the church, the ecclesia, the called out community, the beloved. You can see this clearly in Paul's letter today, to his love letter to the church in Philippi. He uses the word koinonia. The English cognates are coin, like, do you got any coins to put in the fountain? Or economy, economy. It means that which is common, koinonia. So more specifically, the common life of Christians called to be and to do the work of Christ is koinonia. In Paul's letter this morning, he says this: I thank my God every time I remember you, constantly praying with joy in every one of my prayers for all of you, because of your sharing in the gospel, your koinonia in the gospel from the very first day until now. This koinonia is not like a membership or an affinity group or a people of like-mindedness. Koinonia, this sharing, this common life, is an imitation of the life of Christ himself, his walk with God and our walk with him in this world. One writer in a dictionary I looked up in koinonia said, the community's unity in witness and in life, which is always jeopardized by its own diversity, is held together by love for one another, which imitates Christ's love, koinonia. Freedom obligates not a mere acceptance of others, but a participation in their spiritual formation. Not just accepting one another, but participating in each other's spiritual formation, koinonia. So, friends, what does this mean? It means that we don't come to church, we don't observe the church happening, but we are the church, the ecclesia, the community, the koinonia, sharing the power of love and the witness of Almighty God. That's an astounding thing to say. Why don't you jump out of the pew seats and leave when I say something like that? Because it's a shocker. It's a shocker that each one of us is church for the other. Well, that shouldn't be too surprising. I mean, think just last week, some 45 of us gathered for preliminary conversations with one another about what is holy and what is true in our lives and in the life of this congregation. Canterbury has decades of parishioners looking out after one another, ministering to the dying, the depressed, the de-stressed, the lonely, the cranky, the student. That lady with the beautiful face who tied my bow and smelled so good on Sunday morning, she was taking care of my spiritual formation. the safe, warm welcome I received in Sunday school, part of my spiritual formation through those women who cared so much, and the balm of beautiful music filling my soul, part of my spiritual formation, and even helping my poor sick brother walk out of the choir, in the procession with his head held high, even though he was in cramps. Spiritual formation. So to be for one another has been the hallmark of the church from the beginning. Koinonia is glue. It's spiritual glue that binds communities together in times of turbulence. It is what so many people in our culture today long for, I believe, even if they cannot articulate it. To belong somewhere, to deeply belong. Not I belong, but I deeply belong. Where can I be? So koinonia is the gift of church to one another and to our world. That means the person beside you is helping you with your spiritual formation. The person behind you is too, and the person in front of you is called to be koinonia and to be church for you. Wow. What a responsibility. Wow, what a call. And wow, what joy.